certainly the passion for environment, the passion for construction led me to the earth construction and beyond. The passive house was a very intuitive, logical next step. The challenge for us then was we've got around a dozen staff, and we have to translate that to them.
Welcome to the Passive House Podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House Podcast. Welcome back to the Passive House Podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler Welsh, coming to you from Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland in New Zealand.
And I'm Zach Simke, coming to you from Seattle, Washington.
How you doing, Zach?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Days are getting shorter here. It's getting cooler, which is kind of nice. I had a long hot summer, but it's been quite dry in this part of the world. But nice to get a little bit of rain. So yeah. I guess to get the defining feature of the weather right now seems to be settled, which is nice.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Not crazy.
It's not totally nuts. Yeah, that's true here too. But the days are getting longer, thank God.
Yeah, getting longer for you.
Yes.
Very good. All right. Well, we have got an interview conversation that I had with a builder, a very experienced builder from the northeast part of Victoria, Wangaratta, and I really enjoyed catching up with Lachie and finding out a bit about his journey towards Passive House. So we're going to bring you that. But before we do, we're going to do a shout out to our sponsors.
Indeed. So a big thank you to our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. Thanks also to our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Glavel, Ingui Architecture, Minitaire, Partel, Rockwell North America, Stocorp, and Zola Windows. Thanks to our champion sponsors, Bewizo, Gradient, Icon Windows and Doors, Intelligent Membranes, PH Air Seal, Proseco, and Source 2050. Big thank you to our sponsors.
Thanks very much to them, and of course to all our listeners as well. Ovens and King Builders. They've been around for quite a while now, over 35 years, and they've built a range of award-winning homes in Victoria's northeast in Australia. And they're headed up by Lachie and Beth Gales, and have grown their team to be about a dozen builders now. But I really enjoyed talking to Lachlan about his journey from always thinking about sustainability and the environment. And this is a bit of a classic story that we've heard a few times before about starting with passive solar concepts and really trying to figure out sustainability as a leader, and then eventually ending up with Passive House. So I hope you enjoy this. This is my conversation with Lachie Gales of Ovens and King Builders in Wangaratta. All right. Thank you, Lachie, for joining us on the Passive House podcast today. Really appreciate your time. How's things in Wangaratta?
Well, Wangaratta is enjoying a fairly benign summer, which is enjoyable. Having said that, we're really, the effects of climate change are still with us. We're still getting lots of storms and wind events, but yeah, it's not a typical Australian summer. Our environment here, our climate is on the northern side of the Great Divide, so we get very, very hot days. 40-degree temperatures are not unknown or relatively common in the summer. And being close to the Alps there, we still get very, very low temperatures in the winter months. Particularly on clear skies, we can get 5 and 6 degrees of frost. But this year, this season, this summer, not a hard one.
Yeah. So you get those extremes generally. Not too far away from Kosciuszko.
Yeah,
where you guys are?
Well, closer to the Victorian Alps. Having said that, where we stand on the Victorian Alps, we can see what we call the main range in the distance. But Wangaratta is located, for anyone with a sense of geography about the Victorian Alps, we're within about 2 hours of Mount Hotham and the Bogong High Plains, and about an hour of Mount Buffalo. So we spend a lot of time up in that country. Always have. While Wangaratta is not subalpine by any means, some of the places we work in and build in are.
Yeah. What's your background, Lockie? You've been a builder for a little while. You got a bit of experience in the industry.
Yeah, well, it's adding up now. I've been working in construction since about 1981. Became a registered builder in Victoria in 1987. And that was very much driven by a passion for, I guess, alternative construction back then. And I have to preface this that I've learned a lot along the journey about the performance of homes. But back at that period, we were dealing with a lot of earth construction like mud brick and rammed earth, and we were building a lot of large format timber frames for mud brick. We were making mud bricks on site. I had a partner in the business, a very close mate, and for 14 years we worked together, primarily focused around earth construction and a variety of houses. I guess we ended up with a bit of a reputation for anything that was a bit different and a bit difficult. Along the way, we became pretty active in that earth construction field. We're founder members of the Earth Building Association of Australia, and on the coattails of the Earth Building Association of New Zealand, Matthew, which you may be familiar with, pretty closely tied there, and was really active in that area.
And you did a bit of straw bale stuff.
In subsequent, well. I guess that my familiarity with the earth construction meant that when straw bale opportunities came along, I wasn't, it wasn't daunting. But with the fate of earth construction, and this is relevant to the conversation around passive house, because passive house has come about with in Australia at least, with a growing understanding around thermal performance. And what happened with earth construction in Australia was that energy rating came in. The NATERS system started to be applied and developed, and guess what? Solid masonry construction, earth construction was found to not be helpful as an insulator. It was solid mass, and the R value of those walls was very, very low. And we were moving in a regulatory sense to the NATERS system, where we were going to be expected to deliver higher R value walls. So for our business, we could see that was going to force a change. We had to, while we were passionate around the use of alternative materials and thermally efficient construction, we learned a lot about what that actually looked like, and it meant going into higher insulating value walls. So we morphed the business from being focused on earth construction into being focused into thermally efficient homes. And
How did you feel about that focus on insulation levels? Because did you have feedback on the real life performance of the earth houses that you had built?
The feedback on the earth houses we built was always positive. People found them comfortable to live in. In terms of a level of sustainability, which was highly valued, we were literally making the bricks on site. We were coming back in 6 months' time and laying them. It was very, very the carbon miles was very low, put it that way. So there was some benefits in that, absolutely. But as I grew to understand from the learnings that I was getting from the information that was becoming available, there was no doubting the physics of the thing, that mud bricks leak energy one way or another. I live in a mud brick house, and I understand myself that, okay, in the wintertime, as I say, it's a colder climate here. In the wintertime, I run a wood heater, and it ticks over all day, and I understand that my house is leaking energy all the day, so I need that wood heater to be ticking over all day. So so I guess the journey there was once you understand the physics of it, and I hadn't come from a background of a high level of education, to be honest. Once I learned the physics, it was obvious that the insulation emphasis made sense, but it did come at a cost in terms of the sustainability of the materials we were working with. So the earth building in Victoria, particularly because we've got a colder climate in terms of the Australian scene, the earth building industry in Victoria really fell away pretty quickly once we brought in the NatHERS style energy rating, what we call the 5-star rating back then. We're now gravitated in Australia to a 7-star rating based on that same computer modelling software called NatHERS. And
because you even tried a bit of ICF as well. I mean, and a lot of your early work seems to be oriented towards solar, a passive solar design using thermal mass and thinking about shading. So looking back through your portfolio, it seems like you've experimented in lots of different areas.
The solar passive principles, anyone building in mud brick out of the late 70s, early 80s through the 90s, we all understood that mud brick houses could work reasonably well, but the solar passive principles were key. So that underlines construction even now, as you know. So that's fine. But as we morphed from earth construction, as I say, by this time we developed a reputation for anything different and anything difficult. We were always lateral thinkers. So we would take on new products like the ICF, and that's a good contrast because the ICF had a lot of benefits, really, really robust engineering. The New Zealand standards wouldn't scare an ICF house. That's fine. I don't doubt.
We've got a few here.
And thermal efficiency was there. Air tightness was there. Not that we understood that greatly at that time. But in terms of sustainable materials, we're just at the other end of the spectrum. When we look at styrene formwork and concrete and steel. So this word sustainable it's a loaded word in many ways, and how I've come to rationalise it, I guess, for ourselves and our business is if we're building thermally efficient homes and we're using materials that are high energy in their production, it's inherent on us to build things as efficiently as we can. So we get thermal efficiency. So while we mightn't have efficiency in the materials production, the end product will deliver a reduction in that greenhouse gas production because the building itself is efficient. So that's a rationalisation, I know, and a lot of people wouldn't agree with it, but that was the attitude that we grew into when we stepped away from the earth construction and recycled timber beams and things like that, and into more highly refined building materials like ICF.
Yeah, it's a fascinating journey, that from experimenting with those different formats and the passive solar strategies and as you say, the physics and the understanding of that. When did you first hear about passive house?
Quite some time ago, and I guess in a pleasing way, I heard my first exposure to it was at a conference for one of the local building employer associations. So there's a couple in Australia. There's the Master Builders Association, and there's a Housing Industry Association. Now, the Master Builders Association in Victoria have for many years run a green living stream, if you like, and they have a conference, a seminar day pretty regularly. And it was, I'm going back, it must have been 10 years ago, that at a particular conference, the subject of passive house had come up. Now, it rang a bell for me in two ways, because we'd previously built a house in Beechworth where the clients wanted something that was very, very efficient, and they were friends of a fellow who'd be well known to you, perhaps Matthew, Luke Plowman, who also lived in Beechworth. Mm-hmm. And I never met Luke on that job, but clearly Luke's conversations were influencing the clients. While it wasn't an airtight house, there was a heat recovery ventilator went in. The windows were a higher performing aluminium double glaze. There was some really good aspects of that construction, and eventually that house actually won us a national award, which was pretty gratifying. But this concept of passive house was a bit of a vague, not a shadow, but a bit of a vague undercurrent to that house. Then at the Master Builders seminar, someone presented on passive house, and my wife Beth and I were both there, and we looked at each other and said, well, this is us. This is the next step for us. It was just a logical pathway for us to pursue that. But we recognised pretty early that from where we were, with all good intent of around energy efficient construction and a reputation for it, passive house presented a whole new frontier. It was a whole next level, and we needed to do a significant amount of research and learning before we could say we were that. So started to absorb what reading I could, started to look around for what training might be available. And at the time, there was nothing readily available in Australia for training. So we were fortunate enough to be heading overseas, and I signed up for a passive house trades course in Dublin. Yeah. Which went and attended, just was part of our. Yeah, well, look, it seemed at the time, well, let's go to the source. This is a European standard. There's so much in it. Let's go to the source and again, get
go
oil.
Halfway around the world to get to.
Went to Dublin. Beth had a great time touring around all the fantastic sites there, and I spent 4 or 5 days in a windowless room learning about HRV systems. So, unfortunately, what there was confusion. I'm not sure there's confusion at my end or otherwise, but I was aspiring to get the qualification, the passive house trades qualification. So I did the course, and then what became apparent at the end of the course was the exam would be in a month's time or 2 months' time, but it was in person. I couldn't conduct the exam from Australia. So while the experience was valuable, and even to this day, I reflect on the techniques that were presented in Ireland, which was really about massive amounts of styrene, PIR type foam insulations, 300 and 400 mil thick, massive amounts of insulation. It was really eye-opening there. But I came back to Australia, and it wasn't long after that a passive house trades course was started to be run through an adult learning centre in the city. And I think I was on the first or second of those courses, possibly the second. And I have to say, the quality of that course, it was a gentleman, and just a name check, Burkhard Hansen, who's very, very high profile here. Yeah, big fan. Well, really delivered a sensational course. Really did. Clearly a person that was completely informed on the subject, being a European birth himself, and delivered the course very, very well. And I came away feeling, did the exam, got the tick, and we were feeling that, okay, we're nearly qualified to do it. Because we haven't had the experience. We've got the learning, but we didn't have the experience. I was very fortunate then, a few months later, that a local architect, walked in the door, and he had a set of plans a concept plans for a house, again in Beechworth. And again, the clients were friends with Luke Plowman. And Luke had been proselytising, here's what you ought to be doing. The clients were very, very enthusiastic. They were people that wanted to not only build for their own benefit, but they wanted to show others what was possible. We've been very fortunate with our passive house experience to have a number of clients who are I call them the lighthouse keepers. They want to create something that other people look at and see the lived experience and then aspire to. And the clients of the architect wanted a passive house, and the architect had very little knowledge and was good enough to come and ask us to be involved.
So you say the clients wanted a passive house, but they didn't really know what that was. So had they been informed about that by Luke and others?
Through their connection with Luke, yeah. They were, I guess they had an expectation about what the benefits would be, but there was nowhere locally in the northeast of Victoria that they could walk into and say, oh, this is what it's about.
Yeah.
This house was very narrowly, I've got to say, the second certified house in our part of Victoria.
Yeah.
And to that end, that house has been, and the clients have been very generous.
Yeah.
Often when people want to know, well, what's it feel like? What are the benefits? What's the lived experience?
Yeah.
The Beechworth clients and some of our other clients are very generous in sharing that.
Yeah. What do you think, Lachie, has enabled you or motivated you to be constantly adapting and changing and to end up at Passive House?
When I reflect back on my life, I'm at the later end of my years in the industry. When I reflect back on life and your childhood, you see, well, clearly I was always going to be a builder.
Yeah.
There was it was just something about my makeup that I enjoyed the creativity of building, because ultimately it is a very creative thing to do. And at a young age, I became very, very interested in sustainability and environmental issues and the way we walk on the earth. We live in a really beautiful natural area. It's just a gorgeous part of the world, and I don't take that for granted. So when I started a career in construction, I had a predisposal to building things with sustainability in mind, with efficiency in mind, as well as wanting to build things well. And that's one of the things that really resounded to me about the research in the passive house, is that it demands, I don't know if that's a fair word, but certainly if you're a person that is particular about what you do in construction, if you have a sense of detail even down to how the trenches are dug, then passive house is intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
You want to build well. You want to build something that's durable, not only well finished and with the wow factor in some of the finishes, but you want to build from the bone, all the bones, all the structure.
Yeah,
needs to be put together in a way that you can be proud of that structure. So that was something, again, that resounded to me about passive house. Certainly the passion for environment, the passion for construction led me to the earth construction and beyond. And we did some fantastic houses in the earth construction
yeah.
But then, as I say, the passive house was a very intuitive, logical next step for Beth and I to take the business.
Yeah.
The challenge for us then was, by this stage the business has grown. We've got around a dozen staff, and we have to translate that to them.
Yeah.
We have to translate that to them, and we've been very fortunate that has been, we believe we've achieved that. The first passive house we built, the one in Beechworth, where I'd done the passive house trades course. I then had to explain to people the techniques around maintaining the air tightness, for instance. I physically didn't do the works myself. I just had to, and that was quite conscious. I needed to train, if you like, the people around me, and they did a sensational job.
Right.
In fact, they still do a sensational job. We've never had any difficulty with our air tightness tests. The first one was, as you can imagine, absolutely nerve-wracking. We're thinking, well, we're going to look like mugs if this doesn't come through. It was not a problem, and that's continued to be the case. The team around us, the young men and women that are doing our site work, truly get it, and that's been a key thing for any business, being able to infect the people around you with your values and ask them to deliver to a certain standard. That's always a challenge, we're in a very good place with that.
Where to from here for the industry? Does the market get it? Is there a market in your region for passive house? Yeah,
that's a really, really good question, and it's one that I spent a lot of time working through. Our clients with passive house broadly have been an older demographic.
Mm-hmm.
They've been people that have a financial background or financial base, which allows them to consider a 10 to 15% premium, if you like, on their costs to achieve passive house. That the challenge I see with passive house now, in terms of the broader growth of the use of the standard, is people associate it with a more expensive build.
Mm-hmm.
And the data's out there, I know, and you can sit there and create your argument about, well, look, in the long term, you'll get the benefit, financial benefit. But I think what I'm hoping we can do is broaden our demographic base we get a lot of inquiry from people that are in their 30s to 40s that want exactly what our clients in their 60s and 70s are building.
Mm-hmm.
They understand the benefit. They understand the long-term financial benefit. They want the comfort levels. They want to know that they're building in a sensible way that's contributing to the issue of climate change. But that everyone's got a financial limitation. So instead of, our average builds for us at the moment are over that $1 million. There's a market there, I believe, for people in that 500 to 700 market.
Yep.
And we need to develop product that meets that market. Now, we've got some ideas around that and how we do that, but we need to broaden our base. The people that I've been dealing with, as I say, the lighthouse keepers are showing our community what can be achieved and how easy life is. The client in Beechworth, she came to me because I was very nervous that the first house, would it deliver? I was very nervous that we made this promise that you will get these benefits, and would it work? And she came to me shortly after the construction to say that, well, her habit was to get the dust buster out every fortnight and dust the house.
Yeah.
Okay, so she was at a bit of a loss because that task didn't exist anymore. So it's those unforeseen or unexpected benefits. Again, we don't focus just on the energy efficiency of it. There's a whole lot of benefits to it. So we need people to again that different marketplace, that younger demographic, who want the energy efficiency for the financial benefit. They understand cost of energy is going up. This is a long term. It makes sense. But we need them to understand all the other benefits, the many other benefits that come with living in a house of this standard.
I think that's a really good point. There's things that us building scientists really like to talk about, but there are other things that like dusting and clean air and being able to sleep well.
Absolutely.
People.
One of the things that we talk about here, because for your listeners, we live in an area which is one of the highest fire risk areas in the world, and we're regularly beset, particularly in the last 20 years, with very, very significant fires. In our autumn, in the local forests, controlled burning goes on, prescribed burning goes on. So there's a period in autumn where there's always smoke in the air. Now,
right.
So with the HRV systems, we've adapted those to include a HEPA grade filter that takes out the issues of smoke. And again, our communities here, because of these, again, and it's linked to this climate change world now, we have major campaigns. We have weeks and weeks of very significant fires. We have townships impacted, and we had a storm this week in Victoria that left 500,000 people without electricity. So our clients, we've got a client in Bright, which is subalpine. They're on the grid, but their power system is sufficient as they can be off the grid for days. Yeah. They've got a HEPA filter in their HRV. Bushfire smoke is not an issue for them. So they're building resilience into their community. They're building resilience in these communities that will be affected by natural disasters more often.
Yeah. Very good. Hey, well, thank you, Lachie, for your time today and also your work. It's a great story of evolution from going from the earth building, passive solar, and then finding passive house. And now I think you're right. Moving from sustainability into really consciousness about resilience.
Yeah.
And I also think you're playing an important role in being that lighthouse, as you put it, but the example that you didn't have, because there will be clients now who can go and visit one of the houses that you've built and feel it. And that's a really great way to convert people, is if they can actually feel a house, not just see a picture of it.
Matthew, the other example I hope we're offering, I'm an old school builder, but we're building new era homes. Yeah. And the people around me, my son is works in the business. The next generation of this business will be about him and the people here with him. But there's other builders around the district that are well known around the state that know us, that know many of the passive builders. And hopefully what we're doing is paving a way for them to say, this isn't something you need to be scared about. This is actually a relatively straightforward process if you've got the right mindset and approach. So it's not only about clients. Clients creating demand will be the key thing, but it's also about having a community of trades, community of builders that are capable and will promote the better standard construction it is. So there's a couple of things here that we do. We're not without any sense of hubris. We do know that we are seen to be different in our community, in our community of builders, but that is starting to come through to the younger people out there that, well, this is a path that they can follow too.
Lockie Gales there of Ovens and King Builders in Wangaratta. It's in the northeast of Victoria. And you can find them at wangarattabuilders.com.au. What do you think, Zach?
Well, I mean, you said it well. The progression was really interesting from earthen-based construction to then being kind of seeing the writing on the wall with the energy modeling and basis of the NatHERS system, moving toward passive house, and then then thinking about foam and trying to avoid foam, and so moving into the broader questions around sustainability and resilience. It was cool to see that journey and to hear his. I always appreciate people telling that story of where they were, and we were all doing our best, right, with the information we had. And then how that's evolved to where we are today.
And such kudos to people who are at that early stage where I kind of take for granted now I can register for a course. I might have to wait a month or two, but I can do one. And even today I could actually do one without leaving my house, because a lot of those courses have moved online. Lockie went to Ireland to learn about passive house, which is pretty much as far as you could possibly travel from where country, rural Victoria to Ireland. And we've heard a few people like that had to travel. Certainly there's some of the early adopters here in New Zealand had to go to Australia to do some of the first passive house courses. So these really are the pioneers, or the lighthouse keepers, as Lockie puts it. I quite like that that visual of being the person that is guiding or steering people, the rest of the industry, are really those early adopters. And also I'm just really impressed by people who have that amount of experience, but separate themselves from those who settle into a groove and just stay there, as opposed to being true lifelong learners. And Lockie describes himself as someone who always knew he was a builder. I think there was an implication there that he didn't think university or study was for him. Yet some of these people inspire me about how much they love learning and how open to learning and how incredibly intelligent they are in their own way, and also their values around quality and pride for what they do. And wrapped up with all of that is their leadership. I mean, he talked about, he kind of offhandedly commented that they built their team up to 12. I mean, that's a reasonable sized company, and you have to be a good manager and leader to do that. It's no small thing to be running a company, a successful company for that period of time, employing that number of people and giving people a really great profession. So, yeah, I've got a lot of admiration for builders of this scale doing this type of work.
I also really liked his term, that new era homes, that he threw out there, and this notion that the journey that you're talking about, or the kind of the learning and where that's taken him, is to a place where he feels like young people. This makes construction attractive to potentially to young people, and that young people can follow this path. And when he mentioned that, I was just listening to a cleaning up podcast by Michael Liebreich, one of my favorite podcasts, and he was just talking about the energy transition and what's going on, and noting the opposite thing going on in the fossil fuel industry, that there's a really precipitous drop in the number of students who are studying like petroleum engineering and fields that are traditionally wrapped up in fossil fuels. So I think that both what Lucky said and also that this other kind of the other flip side of the coin sort of shows that we've reached a different place in kind of the social license for the fossil fuel industry, I hope, and also the kind of how attractive it is to find careers where you can make a difference.
It doesn't seem like a good career move to be looking at petrochemicals right now.
I sure hope not.
I would hope not.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the flip side, I was a part of a conversation the other day. There's actually a study group that have just returned from Europe looking at how to create something similar to the Meister system of Meister carpenters, master tradespeople in Europe, particularly around in Germany, and the culture that is around that, and how. Well, there's lots of rules in place for a start, such as you not being able to actually even open a business until you've completed that training and you actually become a professional Meister, as opposed to a lot of parts of the world. An apprentice can pretty much start their own business, just hang the sign up. But there's this real culture around trades and craftsmen, and also the sense of ownership that people have in their work, and the both legally in terms of warranties and guarantees of that work, but also just the pride in their work. Anyway, we were talking about what it would take to change the culture of things like builder trades and apprenticeships and more hands-on work, because it does have a bit of a disadvantage. It's not seen as desirable as going off to university, and that's something that there's a group of us that are really keen to change that and show young people that this is a great way to do something really useful and beneficial and enjoyable, and you can create a great business, as Lucky has proven here. So it's a bit of it's an ongoing challenge, but I think there is a growing awareness of just how you can build a career, a worthwhile career, and a lifestyle for yourself, doing something physical being a builder.
Right. No, I think we have the pretty much identical challenge here in North America as well, and in terms of just the kind of perception of work in the trades and things. Of course, the irony is that probably most trades also earn more than an architect does. There's
a lot of a lot of pretty nice trucks driving around.
Yeah, exactly. So it's no, that's right on. I was also when Lucky was talking about the challenge of affordability. I had a couple of thoughts. One is that it is the hardest kind of building to make into a passive house close to cost parity is the single family house, because you're just working against the surface area to volume ratio, and the envelope is just so important in the building, and there's so much of that you just have to invest more in the envelope to make that happen. So I was just thinking about to make these better buildings accessible to younger home buyers or renters, just how important it is also to look at multifamily solutions, even small, just small unit projects bring a lot of savings and benefit with those shared party walls. And, and then also the fact that there are a couple of we have a couple of options. There's in terms of the approach to passive house and passive building. There's the PHI approach and the FIESA approach. So it's good to explore both of those when you're looking for cost optimization.
Which is a big flavor of Reimagine recently, which I am assuming you're recovered from now, at least physically.
I am. I am feel so well rested and fresh after Reimagine Buildings 24. Yes, it's been a couple of weeks.
But yeah, that was a highlight of that for me, was just hearing about people's different experiences, jumping into passive house to different degrees, because I think there's a big perception that you're either passive house or you're not. But we've talked to a lot of people who go varying way along the path, whether it's in PHI terms, it might be classic, or all the way up to premium. But also just choosing different aspects and different approaches for different parts of the world. So exciting to see. And of course, Lockie talked about they're not subalpine, but he has built in subalpine, which is quite cold, but they also have to deal with incredibly hot temperatures in the summer and dealing with smoke fires, which we also talked about quite a lot during Reimagine. So yeah, really exciting to see that passive house emerging in different parts of the world. Speaking of different parts of the world, you guys are off to Innsbruck soon?
Yes, indeed. And we're sorry we won't be able to hang out there with you at this International Passive House Conference. But yes, PHI and IFA are holding their International Passive House Conference in Innsbruck this week. So we're really looking forward to it. We'll be conducting some interviews for the podcast when we're there, and also just reconnecting with the global PHI Passive House community. It's going to be fun. Yeah, and
it's always good to catch up for those big events and see what's going. Particularly the German International Conference. There's going to back to where it all started.
Yeah, and there's going to be a real strong focus on retrofits for this conference. That's kind of the organizing theme. So it should be really interesting.
Yeah. Very good. All right. I hope all that goes well. Get lots of special episodes coming out of that, and some new ideas. But I guess that's it for now. So we'll be back again next week on the Passive House Podcast.